to another DorkLair action figure review. Today I'm taking a look at the Cosmic Legions Vellok Speer from Oxkrewe Book 1, Thraxxon. This wave was quite a long wait. It was just under 2 years from the end of the pre-order window to it actually shipping out. They did ship out all of the all-ins. So if you ordered an all-in, you should have tracking now, or it should already be at your house. My tracking, I got it yesterday and the box arrived today, and I wanted to get one out and on the table and give everybody a nice look at this new body, brand new body. There are a few figures in the wave with this body, so if we kind of like look at this one, you'll get a good idea of the others, and I'll try to review as many as possible. But for now, we're taking a look at Vellok, who is the pilot of the Qorgonox. And the name Oxkrewe is the nickname they gave to the crew of the Qorgonox, which crash landed on the planet Thraxxon. So the wave being called Oxkrewe Wave 1 Thraxxon. And he is, this very cool, big, huge, chunky suit. And I'll show you some comparisons next to some of the other figures. Fantastic body. I'm really liking this thing. Of course, it's going to have some limitations being so chunky in terms of some articulation range, but all things considered, this thing moves really well. Fantastic figure. Let's get into this review. Zooming in for a close-up of Vellok with those yellow eyes, that pattern on the face there, which is actually sculpted in. It's not just a paint job. That is actually a sculpt. And he's got a scar over on his left cheek. He's got that beard with a nice wash on there. Looking pretty good. I think that's a pretty cool looking alien race right there. This is one of 2 different head sculpts. The other head is helmetless, and this head also has another faceplate where you can swap his face out for a like a masked version. That kind of actually looks like Cobra Commander. I'll show that in a little bit, and then you can get a look at the neck area. In this suit, it does have a dome that we'll look at with accessories as well. You can see all sorts of details there. And then the rest of the head and the front of that chest. Big, huge chunk of a chest, of a torso up here. Lots of just like bulk to it. Just gives it that real... I think a lot of people are going to take these bodies, which are really like worker suits. They're like space reclamation scavenger type suits, like space suits essentially. And I think people are going to turn these into like space marines kind of a look there. But yeah, and then he's got the backpack on there, which is removable. Interesting thing here, I feel like this might be meant to be glued in, like this piece here, because it's got the usual Legion's peg for the back that goes into this piece, and then this piece goes into the back. I kind of wonder if that's meant to be glued in, and this part is a separate piece, mostly for manufacturing and making different options for other figures on the back, but I'm not entirely sure. Either way, it functions just fine. You just kind of pop them both on there. There's a lot of different shades of color in here. It's not just like a solid blue figure. You've got a darker blue along a lot of the suit, darker blue up here, and then you have another lighter blue in a lot of the different places, and then you've got a couple different silvers. So you have a gray around the edge here, and then you have more of a metallic silver on these parts, more of a gray underneath the silver here, and all of these little pieces on the belt are separate little pieces that pop on and off. These are essentially grenade-like pieces here, and then different pouches. Some of them have the standard hole, and then now we have a new sized hole, which is the hole that these peg onto. So there's kind of like 2 different sized, like, I don't know, modular holes for Cosmic now. And just kind of like looking through at all the details. We got some sort of orangey red painted over here, bringing into the legs. Pretty much brand new from head to toe. I have to compare the piece here at the crotch area and see if that's like the same. I don't think it is. I don't think it's the same as the other ones. But, brand new legs, brand new, just a lot of stuff here. We do have toe articulation now, which is pretty cool. It's like kind of ratcheted toe articulation. But yeah, a very, very good looking figure. as always, like amazing sculpture and paint job from Four Horsemen Studios. The figure just looks fantastic. Zooming out for an overall look at the proportions of Vellok Speer, he stands just over 7 inches tall. For comparisons, here are a couple other Cosmic Legions figures. I chose these two because they have some blues, and you can kind of compare the different tones of blues across the line. On the left is Sligor the Gravekeeper. He is on a 1.0 body. That is a Tusk body, and there will be some compatibility between that one and Vellok. And on the right is Kalian Shun, and she is on a 2.0 body. In fact, she has a lot of Mythic Legions parts mixed in with her. It's a pretty like almost like a 50-50 combination of like mythic and cosmic parts. But she is that slimmer body. She, interestingly, is part of the same affiliation, kind of like the same faction as Vellok, because she was actually looking for the Qorgonox. It was like a little teaser before we even knew that the Oxkrewe was going to be the next wave. But on the Outpost Zaxius narratives, she was looking for the Qorgonox. So there's definitely a pretty cool connection there between Kalian and this crew, though she is directed elsewhere and she doesn't end up, at least at the time, searching for the lost Qorgonox. And then two other Cosmic Legions figures. On the left is Novi and Lean, and you can actually see here that that crotch piece is definitely different, and now that I look at it, they're definitely two different pieces. So Novi and Lean, 1.0 body on the left, and then we have the Ogre's Scale Kragnar on the right, and he barely fits in the picture, and he's actually moved back a little, so if you pull him forward, he's definitely going to be like out of the frame, but that's him like lined up right next to Vellok. Next up, if you don't yet have any Cosmic Legions, I thought I would throw some Mythic Legions in the mix so you can see maybe something more familiar to compare to. These are both Mythic Legions 1.0 style New Knights. These are on the New Knight body. On the left is an Armory Experience Knight, and then on the right is the new Silver Knight, both of which have custom cloth goods from Joseph Connors, aka the Seamsmith on Instagram. Awesome stuff, like really good prices. So check him out if you're looking to pick up some like tabards for your knights. I think he does like fur vests and stuff, like barbarian fur and so on and so forth. And then getting into some non-Legions stuff, here we have a couple Army of Ashmore figures. Here's an Action Force Fury Praetorian from Valaverse on the left, and a Lexion from Animal Warriors of the Kingdom by Spiro Toys on the right, and then Odious on the left from Unparalleled Universe, and Kamo of the Isles on the right from Savage Crucible. And then a couple comic book figures. On the left is the Maximum Spider-Man from Marvel Legends. On the right is a head-swapped Batman tactical suit from Mezco Toys with a custom cape. And finally, everybody's favorite adopted Cosmic Legions figure, NECA Alf. For accessories, I do want to start off with the dome, and this is a lot easier to work with than the domes on the tusks. So this actually really is just a tension fit. It just pops right on there, and it just stays on, you know, pretty good. Like, it just removes very easily. You know, there might end up being some scuffing if you mess around with it a ton, but overall, this thing, you know, just fits nicely. And then it's got the dome piece here, which is just another tension fit that kind of squeeze in there. It's probably easier to put it on first, but there we go. And then so with the dome on there, that's how he looks, just like that. And then this head sculpt actually has two faceplates, so we have this alien face on here, and then you can swap this silver mask right into it here, and that's how that looks there. And we can pop that on the head and get a look at him with that. Kind of has like a Cobra Commander vibe going on there. And then the other option is to just go with a completely unhelmeted head sculpt here, which looks great. And again, all of these ridges, these, you know, alien marking lines are actually sculpted in. So, you know, that's a pretty nice touch right there. One thing I think we are starting to get spoiled on is a lot of Mythic Legions and Cosmic Legions come with a whole bunch of hands, but unfortunately he only has two sets of hands. He's got a pair of regular gripping hands, and those have a horizontal hinge. And then he has a pair of pistol gripping trigger hands that have vertical hinges right here. And I wanted to show the belt because each one of these pieces is like this, where it just like pegs on using these little holes here. There's a couple that have the standard cosmic pegs for the tubes and stuff, but every single piece along this belt is actually a separate piece. So I could take them all off, and then you'd see how he looks without them on there. Take a second to get all these off. And that's how he looks without them on there. Obviously, you're going to want to have them on there when you're posing up and stuff, but just so you can kind of see how he looks with them off. And speaking of those holes, he does come with that one tube that you can plug into this hole and, you know, like maybe into this hole over here or into one of the holes on the backpack. Speaking of which, there's a look at that backpack there. And it's got a couple of those holes. It's got this, if you have a figure with the ammo belt, you could totally use that with this backpack, I'm pretty sure. And then that's got the peg to go into the back. He's also got a flashlight that pegs into the arm. It doesn't light up or anything, but it does have a clear plastic piece on the front to kind of give it that look. And then he's got the one pistol here, really nice, like shiny black with some nice silver accents there, painted super sharp. And finally, his kind of like major tool. This would be something that the crew would use for excavating and tearing apart like a ship if they're gonna go through and salvage a bunch of stuff from it. But it's the same heavy gun piece, but instead it's got the chainsaw tip on the front. So that's a nice addition to that piece right there. Okay, let's get into some articulation. So the head does have a hinge on the neck there. So I think we're at the point where it's going to be pretty standard to see Mythic Legions and Cosmic Legions with hinged necks going forward. Maybe not every single figure, but I think you're going to see a lot of that going forward. And then so you can pop the head onto that ball joint and you can get a ton of range of motion. He can kind of go forward and back and up and down and side to side and spin that head around and stuff. And then getting a look at the shoulders. So this piece is basically on a hinge, and that you can pop off if you want. Like, so if you wanted to really like move things around and then pop it back on, just heat it up first and it'll get nice and soft and it'll pop right off. But that's on some sort of like disc that's around the shoulder here, and that thing can swing around to the front and the back, and then that'll allow for the arm to swing all the way up if you'd like on that peg. And then there is a disc that brings the shoulder up to this far. There's no bicep swivel or anything like that. You do have an elbow joint that comes to a little bit past 90, maybe about 90 degrees. And then there's a twist at the forearm. Of course, there's a twist at the wrist, and there's a hinge at the wrist as well. The hands are pretty like locked in there. Like, there's not a huge range of motion. You're especially not going to be able to go back because of the way the armor is there, but you know, you can kind of grip down with it a little bit. And then he does have that ball jointed waist that is very, you know, typical of Mythic Legions. So he can crunch forward and back and side to side a little bit. Those pouches can kind of get in the way of things a little bit there, but ball jointed waist. And then getting into the hips, he can't kick out quite as far as your typical Mythic Legions figure, but he can go out to the side about this far, and then he can kick forward. You have to kind of go out and then forward with it, but he can kick forward about yay, and then you can go back a little. That butt plate gets in the way, but you can kind of move around it. And then there's a twist at the top of the thigh. The knees are very limited. They only go up to, like, I don't even know what degree that is. That's like not a lot of range. It's hard to like put much range in when you have this much bulk, but that's about it for the knee. And then there's a twist below the knee. And then there's a typical hinge and rocker and twist at the ankle. But now we do have that toe articulation. So that actually is fun for some poses. All right, and now I'm going to just kind of like disassemble this thing as much as I can so that you can see kind of what he's made out of. So the head, like I said, is on that ball joint that pops out like this. The neck pegs into this piece. I'm going to take it off of here first, but you can see this piece pegs in for other, you know, modularity for different figures. And then this neck piece actually pegs into here, if I can get it out. There we go. I had to like get a good grip on it and then pull that out there. But that's your usual neck peg. That'll pretty much be compatible with other figures. And then this is your new piece. So if you have another neck that you wanted to use with this, you could use it and then just put it in there. And then I heated the shoulder up so that you can see how easy it will be to pop this piece off here if you want to disassemble that shoulder arm. And then you can see this spins. I haven't really tried too hard to get this out of here, but it's, you know, it looks like you could probably remove it with a whole bunch of heat. I just haven't messed around with it too much. I don't want to break something before I, you know, like before I get a review in, but there's that. And I pulled the torso off. It was on there really tight, but it is your standard 1.0 Mythic Legions waist joint with that ball peg there. And this piece here is separate. Let me see if I can pull this off. I don't know if I'll be able to do it on camera here, but this is a separate piece right here. Yeah, there we go. And then that pegs in this big thick peg right there. Obviously not compatible with anything else yet, except for the other, you know, Oxkrewe bodies, but just something that gives a little more modularity to the whole thing. So there's your torso right there. And these are, I'm sure, are removable. I just haven't experimented enough with it yet to get them out. They didn't pop out super easy, so somebody else will figure that out. And this piece comes out as well, like I said earlier. Again, I'm not sure if they meant to glue that on this particular figure, but works pretty well either way. And then the leg assembly is pretty much your standard Mythic Cosmic 1.0 style. You do have a front piece here where like the loincloths would usually go. And then you have the butt cover in the back, and then just like your regular legs. Of course, the major difference is the toe articulation with that nice ratchet there for stability and posing. Just a couple swaps here. I've got the orc head, very simple, just a head swap on here. It fits perfectly. It maybe seems a little bit small because of the bulkiness, but I think that's just how it's supposed to be, right? Like this is a massive suit, so anyone inside it, their head's going to look a little smaller. And then I'm happy to report that if you have any figures with this chainmail Mythic Legions head, then those faceplates are absolutely going to fit. So here we have Sir Elijah faceplate swapped on to the Vellok figure. And then here's a look at Sir Enoch's face on there, and I think that looks equally as good. These faceplates are making me very happy right now. Next up, here's the Paladin Cleric faceplate on there. And this one to me kind of looks the best because he's got that big beard and it just fills out that space a little bit better. All right, I may have spoke too soon. Here's the skull from Sir Elijah on there. And that is killer. I am so happy that that fits on there. That is amazing. Okay, one last pop and swap. I wanted to put bare arms on there and I tried out 1.0, regular 1.0 arms. And they just seemed too puny for this big bulky body. So I ended up going with the brute scale, Kalazir, the Jinn. And I just went with his head so it would match up. I don't really know that I would use this combo, but maybe use like an orc, maybe like a regular orc head, and then use the green arms from Tharnog. And then I might not put it on this blue suit, but maybe put it on like Orvar's suit or something. But yeah, like I think there's potential there for putting like brute scale arms with this. Now I will say I had to use sticky tack to get the forearms into the elbow because it was just a little too loose there. I don't know why that is. They're basically the same size peg, but it was just a little too loose. It's like not quite the right fit. But overall, I think there is definitely potential there with this kind of a combo. Anyway, Sir Vellok is a very fun figure. I'm really loving this new big bulky body here. And then that, you know, compatibility, you can't go wrong with those faceplates in this situation. I wish every single one was like totally interchangeable and compatible, but we are getting more faceplates, so it's going to be a lot of fun with those. Anyway, awesome figure. Great job, Four Horsemen. Until next time, may the Force be with you.